Are they still doing the sours? Because last time I was there, like 20 hours. They still, there's like on 6. Yeah, they were like,
Yes.
I like a good sour.
for a difference, like for like a change.
Yeah.
Because I never ever have them. So when I saw they had that.
Test.
If that's how it was set up. Because it was perfect, man.
Loud and clear. There we go. Can I ask him about the stream? We can have a connect. You don't like it.
All right, gang, we're gonna get going here. Hey, everyone, Happy New Year. Woo! So, yeah, welcome. Another charmCityJS monthly meetup. And we are in January. And I'll just go over some things that some of you are very familiar with, but if you're new, you know, just maybe take some notes. We've got a website, charmCityJS.com. There, you can submit a talk. We love them to be short. We love them to be beginner friendly, but whatever you've got, please, any ideas you have you'd like to share, please submit them. Some of you might be wondering that you've submitted talks a while back, and maybe some people are submitting newer talks and they're up here. But some of the things we're trying to do is to make sure we mix up, beginner-friendly talks with more advanced talks that are more technical focused with talks that are less technical. So don't think that anything was wrong with your talk. We definitely will be trying to fit them in. Also, if you have a particular reason why you need to give a talk at a particular time, please share. Maybe you want to practice for a bigger audience. It's always great to be able to practice here with us, and then we can all get feedback. I've done that before. So please share the talks. What you're also seeing some activity with all these cables and audio video here, which our chief sound and audio video engineer Brandon has been helping us with.
I don't know anything about chief.
We're trying to get them recorded. For some of you who might also want to use it, perhaps to audition for other talks. And, maybe we'll even be able to stream it live, but then nobody will come. So yeah, once we sort of work through the kinks, make sure we have the right audio and video, then, we'll be able to definitely record them for you to see later or live. So please submit talks and give us any feedback about talks that have been submitted. And hang out with us on Slack. That's the, if you go to the website, charmCityJS.com, you'll see a link to go to the Slack, to request the Slack access. So please jump on there. Thanks to our sponsors for the awesome pizza and for hosting us tonight, beginning with advertising.com. or AOL, as we know them, our hosts here. Also Spark Post and Tenon. Thank you guys, everybody. Round of applause. And announcements would be this way. Our sister Baltimore meetup here is Be More on Rails. They meet every week, generally, three times a month. The next one would be on the 12th, next Tuesday. It's every Tuesday. And they've got good speakers and good topics lined up if you're interested in Rails. The next one after that would be on the 26th, where they do the open source hack night. And then for those looking to apply and give talks and conferences, upcoming one in Virginia Beach is the Revolution Conf. You should check it out. The conference itself is on May 13th, and the proposals call for speakers are now through February 29th. So go on there, check that out. And now, any announcements from the crowd you'd like to share? All right, very cool. And then for tonight's speakers, we have Bridget Werner, who's up next. Will be talking to us about the charmCityJS framework for single-page web apps. And Jason will be on after that talking about NPM. And finally, we'll have an open discussion for just general JavaScript question and answers, if you have any. You can start thinking about questions that we can just do a free form discussion about if you feel like it would be the last thing up. So next, Bridget, you ready for us? Awesome.
Is this going to stay up here the whole time?
Wow.
Not gonna. This is, oh. I'll fade. All right. Okay, so my name is Bridget Werner. I work at a small company here in Baltimore called Alview that builds financial software for school districts. And so a lot of what we do is track how the principals are using the app to look at their finances. And this is a very short lightning talk just to get you up and running with some basic tools for analytics. Not to be skipped steps if we weren't giving a talk, gather requirements from your team. Definitely manage expectations, especially with the biz department, because sometimes there's a tendency to want to track everything, which might not actually be that useful. Do some research and choose the tools that you want to use. The good news is implementing them is a pretty low cost. So if you decide after you've tinkered around with it that it doesn't actually work that well for you, then it's easy to switch to something else. And then once you've installed the tools, you'll also want to set up time to teach the tools to your biz department. Things that I took for granted weren't obvious. So I ended up spending maybe about just a half an hour going through the tools with them and kind of explaining how they could use them better. But we're going to skip those first few steps, and we're going to look at the tools that we chose just for our particular use. We decided to go with Segment and also analytics.js, which is created by them. And then we chose to use Ember CLI Segment, which is an add-on for Ember CLI that gave us a lot of stuff out of the box to actually integrate these. And then we took Segment and integrated it with Google Analytics and Mixpanel, so it would send it to both of those things. And Segment was by far the easiest part of the entire process. It was so quick to get set up. You just enable all the integrations you want, and there are a ton more here. It has a nice little debugger to make sure that the events that you expect to be sent are actually getting through. And then it gives you all of the keys that you need. So you can actually set up a development and a production one so that you can test it and then don't have that data in your production environment. We wanted to avoid having to deal with this because you can rewrite this to use in a single page web app since you're not going to just drop it into the header. And there's a lot of documentation. They actually have really great documentation and a quick start guide. But to avoid that, if you were, say, using React, there's a a React analytics that will add this for you. Or if you go and look at it, there's not a lot to it yet. So if you're interested in contributing, I'm sure they'd be happy to have someone working on it. But luckily for us, this one was pretty well fleshed out. And it was just a matter of installing it and then adding the right key into the environment.js. And so we set that dynamically so we could choose to have a different one depending on which of our production environments it was in or locally. So what this gave us was it gave us an initializer that injected a segment object which wrapped around all the segment.js methods, and then also a did transition method on the router, which let us track page views and also identifying users. It also gave us a mix-in that you can use wherever else you would need, because in Ember, you would also maybe want it in a component and not just in a router or controller. However, we ended up needing to extend the mix-in into an object and import it into the components. And we did comment this for future developers to come in and understand what was going on, because otherwise, the analytics, it tries to attach directly to the component instead of having a segment object inside of it. So this was a little bit of a hack we had to do to get it working. And then also in that same environments file, you'll want to whitelist all of your analytics tools. So you'll need to do it for Google Analytics and Mixpanel for the script source, the connect source, and the image source. So to track an action, you not only can track the action, but you can actually send what Mixpanel calls properties to it, so that we know when a user is creating, say, a bookmark of a page in their financial data, we know what the title they used to create is, and then also what type it is, depending on if they're in their accounts versus transactions. And so you can set it either way, either dynamically or set it yourself. And then this gets sent up to Mixpanel into the segmentation. And you can actually look at a graph of the most popular things that are being, and this wasn't intuitive to the biz team. So when we went through this with them, we showed them how they could actually go through and filter by the different properties that come along with that action. And then the other thing that we did was we wanted to track users. So we used something called the JavaScript MD5 implementation that let us securely send off our users' emails to Mixpanel. And Mixpanel does expect it to come this way or it's not going to work. And then the other thing that I worked on with the biz team was teaching them how to do Mixpanel funnels, because especially when you're in a single page web app, you're going to want to really track the actions and users doing on that page, because they're not moving around from page to page. So perhaps a good example that you might want to use is the time it takes from a user to log in to maybe purchase something, or in our case, an example of success is someone being able to come in, filter for something specific in their financial data, and then be able to download that document to then export that out to someone. Now, one thing that Mixpanel doesn't come with out of the box is page views. So it's not going to trigger an action anytime the route changes. So you have to do that manually. So inside the route, we actually have to say track event, and we say view this page, and then we send along the params so that we know what query params the users actually added in that page. So lightning talk, I'm already done. You can follow me on Twitter at Bridget Warner. I'll also be speaking at EmberConf in a little bit. So if anyone else is going out to that, I'd love to talk to you so I know people out there. And if you're interested in working with me, talk to me afterwards.
Thanks. A lot of plants for tonight. Thanks, Bridget. That was awesome. Ooh. All right. So Brandon, we're doing it like this, right? I'm not joining any.
We weren't doing it. You had to talk a little about that part.
Oh, okay. All right. We're still figuring out the recording part. So cool. All right.
We were trying it just like this. I mean, I could try to set it up.
No. Just ask him. All right. Great. Hi. We're going to talk about the nuclear pizza machine. I'll explain. If you don't know why it's called that, you might be able to figure it out. But if you can't, I'll figure it out. I'll help you figure it out in a minute. All right. I don't know what my slides are here. So let's see here. Okay. So, right. Fresh ingredients coming out of a vending machine. All right. So how many people have heard of NPM? Just like at all. Good. That's all. How many people would say like I use it some? I use it regularly. I really understand it. I'm super comfortable with it. I can teach people about it. Cool. No, that's good. That's good. You should keep your hands. All right, great. Good. So you guys can leave because this is not going to be good for you. With the rest of you, I'm just going to try to go through some. Well, actually, I have a slide for this. All right, so we're going to talk about the Bowers. How does this relate to Bower? What should I do with it? We're going to talk about the basics for a while. I'm going to do something that I tell everyone never, ever to do. We're going to rely on the internet for this talk, so pray for me. We'll quickly talk about what Semver is and what it means, how it relates. And I'm going to show you 3 magic tricks that you can do and impress all your friends when you go home, because we all know how your friends like to hear about NPM. I just want to point out this vending machine thing one more time before we move on. It's pretty awesome. That's a thing that, I don't know. I don't think it's real. There's a Snopes article about it, so you know. So if you didn't figure it out, there's the trick, right? Okay, and why? Okay, so on the website, there's a little thing at the top left corner that has all these NPM acronyms for you. There's 523 as of last night, and you can submit pull requests if you have a better idea. So go ahead. I encourage you to do that. The website actually pulls from that text file and randomly puts ones up at the top. Why do they? It's not just a joke, right? It's actually because they want to get past this idea that they're the node package manager. That's what everyone thinks NPM stands for. And so the company actually says that's not what it stands for. It doesn't stand for anything. It stands for all these funny things, because your package can contain anything you want to some degree, even HTML and CSS, if you can believe it, right? So they want to encourage people to use it for more than just Node, okay? Which is why in my first slide, I grabbed this screenshot from their website. They use this cool looking graphic to explain. I really like one that's about to come up here, I think, right there. Package manager for Bower. It's a nice little dig. Got to use NPM to install Bower. Let's talk about Bower. How many people have heard of Bower? Do you use it in your projects? I will put my hand up for that because we do, or my company. Okay, so should you use Bower or should you use NPM? I'll start by saying, do whatever you want, right? Like, it's fine, who cares? But if you ask me, I would say, look closely at this lovely Bower logo. Look into his eyes. He's trying to tell you something. Whatever you think you can do better with Bower is probably not true. It might be this much true, but it's probably not true. You can do it with NPM, and you may have to change some things about your project slightly to make it work. If you've ever heard of things like Browserify and Webpack, these are really popular module build thingies, whatever they're called. But they take your code that you can write in a kind of a sensible way and then make it ready for the client side. So you don't have to worry about all that closure, iffy, IIFE scoping bullshit. You don't have to worry about that, and you don't have to worry about loading scripts in order and making sure you did it in the right order, or things like wire depth that are inserting like script tags into your HTML file with regexes and all sorts of weirdness. You don't have to do that. Just use NPM. And I'm not going to go into this further because we'll have time afterwards to talk and do some more questions. So if people want to hear more about that, I'm happy to talk about it. But if you want the TLDR, just use NPM, because Bower is kind of going away too. We can talk more about that later if you want. Anyway, Let's talk about the basics. All right, I need to get my phone out because we're going to do some notes here. Okay. This is bad. Hey, it's the Slack team. You should join it. All right. All right, so we've got this nuclear pizza machine folder. Can people see that? I'm going to go a little bigger. Let's go bigger. Yeah. All right. Nope. There we go. All right. Okay. So first thing that you can do with NPM, this is the kind of thing that most people would do, right, with it, is I'll just show you what's in this folder here. I've got just a simple index file and a package JSON that has nothing in it. Okay, just a little JSON object. Okay. So if I want to use NPM to install something, actually the first thing we'll do, let's go back to the slides real quick here. Let's say I want, so I can go to their website, and you can see at the top there, nationwide polygamous matrimony. Those are the things that they're pulling in. You can click on that, and it'll give you a new one for a couple minutes there. It's pretty fun. Okay, and then you can search for a package here. So I just want to show you something I recorded earlier. If you were to do a search for, say, something like hipster framework, let's see what comes up here. It's weird. It's kind of a neat thing. Something, if you may not have heard of it, it's coming out this year sometime. 2016 it drops, I think. It's pretty cool. So yeah, you can get like all sorts of stuff. It has tags. It has a description that links to the GitHub. So you can do all kinds of searches on the website. This search is getting better and better. It used to be really terrible. People would just go to Google instead. I would just go to Google, type in NPM, and look for a package that way. I would say this is getting much better. It's maybe not perfect yet, but it's getting much better. They're working on it a lot. So that's cool. We can jump to the real website now. Let's see what's here. Man, is it really tiny, a resolution. Okay. So yeah, this is the website. They have their most downloaded packages, a bunch of getting started docs. They're adding to this all the time, trying to make this a better resource for people. So if you're curious about learning more, I encourage you to check it out. You can do any searches for just if you want to do something about the browser. You can look, there's tags here. It's a little bit weird to get to them, but you can kind of click on something. And then if you find a keyword here, browser, now I can do a keyword search. And this will give you all the browser keyword tags. So don't think that NPM is just for Node. There's tons of stuff on here that's just ready for use in the client. Again, you're going to have to use something like Browserify or Webpack to make it work, but it's worth it because it gives you access to a bunch of crap. All right, so that's how you install. Okay, wait, actually, I didn't do that. So here, we're going to NPM install this cool new framework. And let's see if it works. Okay, so by the way, NPM comes with Node. So if you install Node on your machine, you're 99% sure to have the latest version of NPM installed with it, or whatever is shipped with that package, which actually won't be the latest version. It's 2, which is what I'm going to use right now. So don't worry about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and download React. And this tree syntax here is actually important to understand a little bit, right? So it's downloaded React. It's got version 0.14.6. It put it in node modules /React. And React has 1 or 2 dependencies here of Envify and FBJS. And I guess this promise thing too here. So, and then in there, they've got their own dependencies. And so this is kind of the whole tree. If you use NPM 3, this looks different. Again, I really don't think you should worry about that. We're just going to talk about the basics here and a couple of magic tricks at the end. But that's the basic gist here. So NPM install will do this. We can jump into Atom. Oh my goodness, that's tiny. Sorry about the resolution there. But you can just trust me that React is downloaded into that Node modules folder, and that's the magic way that Node knows how to find it. So if you're in your project anywhere inside this folder, the nuclear pizza machine folder, and you say require React, which is the name of that package, it's going to grab stuff out of that folder because it's going to know where to look for it. Okay, this isn't a talk about all that, so I'll skip over some of the details there, but this is where it puts it. So you should always see that node_modules folder when you NPM install things. Now I have this package JSON file. Let me bump up the size here too. There's nothing in it right now. What this does is it gives you a way to specify all the things you've downloaded. So what we can do actually to get this started, clear this again, we can say npm init, and this is going to get us through. And I'm actually going to get out of this. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions, what you want to like set up your project. Sometimes it's good to just do npm init-y and say yes to everything once you know what it's doing. And it's going to give you this setup here. So it's going to guess the name based on the folder. It's going to start you at version 1.0. It's going to give you a main file. It's going to give dependencies. This is really nice. So if you've started your project, and you just download it, npm install, you're just playing with some things, and you're like, oh, I want to make this a real project. So you do npm init. It's going to look at the packages you have installed in your node modules folder, and it's going to add them to your dependencies hash there for you so that you don't have to go back through and do that yourself. So that's nice. We'll talk about some of these other things later. I wouldn't worry about it. But this gives you a nice, clean, new package.json file that you can now use to add your dependencies to so that you can keep track of all the different things that you're using. You don't have to remember later. Well, I used React. What version was I using? If I want to tell someone else to grab this, you can just keep track of it in here. All right, how do we do that? Oh, my phone turned off. Cool. So we're going to use npm install, but we're going to give it a flag. It's -- save. So now if we did React, actually we don't need to do that because we already have that in our package.json because it got added with npm init. So maybe we do npm install something like React-Redux. Okay. That's going to go ahead and install that, but because we said save, it's now going to put it right here. So install Redux, React Redux, and install Redux for us because that's what React Redux told it to do when we installed it. And so that is how things get added in here. You don't have to install it and then look at the version and then go into your package.json and manually type it out. If you just give it the -- save flag, it's going to put it in here. Sometimes we get scared. We don't want this caret here. This means whenever we install, just pick a version. Right? I'll talk about more how it picks that later. But this is saying like we are loose in what we want you to install. So the next time, like let's say, check this into GitHub and one of your coworkers pulls this down from GitHub. It's not going to have these node modules folders in it. We're going to most likely ignore those in our version control so that we don't have this huge tree of other people's packages in our repo. And so you're going to npm install to pull everything from the package.json file. And it's going to look in here and it's going to say, oh, anything bigger than 0.14.6. You might get that one. You might get a slightly newer version. Sometimes people don't want that. And so the way we can get around that is, first step would be to uninstall this. So we can uninstall. We can save the uninstall for React Redux. And if we go back in here, you can see it's gotten rid of React Redux. It didn't get rid of Redux, which is a problem, but got rid of React Redux, and we can go back and install it. But instead of saying just save, we can also say save exact. And now, instead of having that caret here, it's a minor difference. I'll talk about exactly what the caret does in a minute. Now there's no caret. So it's giving us the exact version, and now we have that saved down. So anytime somebody installs from our project, it's going to install the exact 4.0.6 of React Redux. You know, that matters when you're doing certain things with NPM. Other things you can do, like dev dependencies. This is a way of saying this stuff doesn't, it's not important to my project if you just want to run the project. It's important to me so that I can do things like test it or lint or use all these kind of like development tools. Okay, so if I want to depend on, clear that, npm install, I want to depend on something like Mocha or ESLint. Right? So I can say save dev, and we'll do ESLint. It installs it in the exact same place, gives you access to it in all the exact same ways. But the only difference is, if the internet cooperates, is it's going to put it in a different place in that package.json file so that you can do different things with it. You can later say, I only want to install production dependencies, and it won't install anything in that dev dependencies array. So you can keep those separate, because sometimes you want to do different things with them. So if you look in here, we now have our same dependencies up here, but we have dev dependencies here. We can still do that save exact thing if we wanted to, which would be save dev space save exact, and it would save exactly 110.3 instead of the caret. But for dev dependencies, sometimes it's not as important. It's not like production code. What else do we have here? Dev. So I talked about how to uninstall. What if you're just curious what is available out there to install? So I'm going to uninstall React. And now I want to know, okay, if I just say npm install React, it's going to give me the most up-to-date version. But maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I need an older version for some reason, right? So for any package that's out there, I can do npm view, the name of the package, Minnesota, and then I can say versions, okay? And this is going to give us a list in kind of JSON format of all the available versions that are available for download. And so if let's say I wanted 0.11.0. So now I can do npm install save React at 0.11.0. Because that version exists, it's going to find it. Nope, it doesn't exist. So maybe it's 1. There we go. No. Oh, okay. So here's the thing, right? So as soon as you start going backwards in time trying to get older packages, usually you're doing that because you've got a bunch of other older packages, and this is what something else you're using requires an older version of React. And so what you're seeing here is I've got the latest version of React Redux and the latest version of a couple other things, and so we have a problem when we're trying to install an older version of React. So if we just, actually, I'm going to go ahead and remove node modules. And in package.json, I'll remove these dependencies manually just to clear it out, okay? And now I can say 0.11.1. Now we're starting fresh. Okay? React's the only thing we have. It tells me we've got 0.11.1, which has its own set of dependencies, and in here we've got 0.11.1. So what happens when I decide that I want to update? So npm gives you a way to do this without too much trouble. And it's going to obey these rules that I'll talk about more in a minute. This caret means something about like what newer versions I'm comfortable with. You could also do a tilde there, which means something else. You can do specific ranges like 0.11.1-0.12.4. I only like these ones or something. I don't know why you would do that, because you aren't going to know the future very well, like exactly which version you want to stop at, right? But usually this means I'm comfortable with what's coming in the future, right? So we might say npm update React. And because 0.11.1 with a caret means go ahead and install anything that is in the 0.11 range. When I do this, I'm just going to go up to 0.11.2. Because that's the latest version in that 0.11 range. Right? There's an 0.12, but we don't want to upgrade to that. We only want to stay in the 0.11. Now, when you're installing older versions, this gets very confusing. But if you had the most up-to-date version, what's going to happen is you're going to have that, and as new versions come out with bug fixes, when you do npm install or npm update in your local machine, it's going to grab those bug fixes for you. So you're going to get the new versions like 0.14.3, 0.14.4 as they come out. When it does a more major change, like it goes to 1.0, you won't just automatically upgrade to that, because that would be terrible, because you might be breaking changes and all that code. And so they're trying to create this contract with the Semver style we'll talk about in a minute that should allow you to say, I want this fuzzy range. That's what that update is doing. So, okay, a lot of things about Semver we haven't talked about yet, but basic gist here is we have install. We have a bunch of ways to save what we're installing to our package.json, and then we have an update. Okay? And that's kind of like what people think of when they think of npm, is it's a way to manage your dependencies. And I've heard people say that where they get confused is that they didn't realize that you could do all this other stuff with it too. Right? So you can also publish packages to the registry. There's no checks on what gets published. So it's not like there's some, like PHP has pair where you have to like get it approved. There's no approval process. You just say npm publish, and it will look at your package.json file. And if it's set up correctly, there's a few things you have to do right, like have a version, have a name. It will just send a copy up to npm and allow other people to install it by the name that you chose in your name here. So like this nuclear pizza machine, we can publish this. We're not going to do it, but we could publish this 1.0 stable version of nuclear pizza machine right now. Not going to do it. So that's like really scary, I think, for a lot of people. Like, wait, whoa, what do I have to do? And so I just want to kind of make sure you understand. I'm not going to go deep into this because I'm trying to keep the talk short, but it's super easy, like almost too easy, because you can accidentally publish things sometimes. But yeah, it's super, super easy to do this and to keep publishing new versions. I will show you one thing. So let's say I made a change to, I don't know, my index file. It says some HTML. We're going to use this in a minute. Aren't I cool? All right. Okay, actually, I don't even know if I have this in Git, so this may not work. Let's take Git init. Add. Who cares? Okay. So now I can change this. Doesn't actually matter. All right. So great commit. If you're not here to learn Git, good. And we're gonna. Okay. So when you want to publish something, what you want to do is change the version of it. You create a Git tag on your repo. If you don't know what that means, don't worry too much about it. If you do, I'll just kind of give you a side note here. You would create a tag, and then you would publish. You would push your tag to GitHub, and then you would publish a copy of that to NPM. And then later, when NPM wants to install for someone else, it's going to grab the kind of bundled version of your code, which is stored in that tag. Tag is kind of like a zip file of your code at a certain frozen point in time. And so it can get kind of cumbersome to be like, okay, I committed my code. Now I need to make sure I remember to go in here, my package JSON, and change it. Do I do it like this, or do I do it like this? I don't remember. And then you have to commit and tag it and all this stuff, right? It's kind of silly that I'm saying it's a lot of work, because it's not. But NPM does this awesome thing where I can do NPM version, and I can say I want a patch version, right? And I do that. Okay, so it said, oh, v101, and now we've got the package JSON file has been updated, and if I do git tag, there's a tag here for v101. It did a commit. Let's see here. There's my stupid commit, and then it did a commit for 101. So it does the commit, the tag, and the changing of the package JSON file all for you. So use it, right? Because it's way better than manually messing it up. So that's a really cool little thing. If you're using, like we use Mercurial at work, and so it doesn't do all these things for you for Magic, but if you're using Git, it will. So you should check that out. All right, that's all I'm going to say for publish. Let's go into Semver. Yeah. So it has minor and major. So I don't know if it's going to work if I haven't changed anything. Let's give it a try. So minor. Yeah, there you go. It figures it out too. So you don't have to figure out the thing. What's that? Oh, what, really?
Yeah, like.
What are you talking about? Git version what? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're there. So major, minor, patch are going to be big ones you use, but then pre-release will do like some of the, I don't know if it does like alpha kind of thing, or just gives you like a kind of a tag we'll talk about in a minute. These are things you can use for that Semver kind of language to make sure that people don't accidentally install something that they weren't supposed to install, but that other people who do want to install it to test it out can. So that's kind of neat too. So that's NPM version. I didn't even have that in my notes here, but I remember that was cool. All right. So Semver, right? Semantic versioning is what it means. It's this kind of contract someone came up with to say if you make like really critical security changes, then you should only bump that last number, like the 1.0.1, 2, 3. If you make minor changes that don't have any breaking changes in them, then you bump the middle number. And if you have any breaking changes at all in an update, you should bump the major version. Nobody really does it that way, so it's kind of hard to necessarily trust it. But that's how it's set up to work. And so NPM kind of took that on when it was created, maybe a little bit of its own version of it. And so there's this awesome site, Semver calculator for NPM. It uses the same logic that NPM itself uses to figure out what version it's going to give you. So if you're in Lodash, 1.x would apply to 1.0 all the way through 1.3. I don't know why that 1 is way over there. It's weird. But it won't give you 2.0. And it won't give you, these ones here, the RCs, are those pre-release versions. So So that gives an author a way to tag something as 1.0 pre, and people can specifically download that with the @ or with other kind of tricks. And they can get that and test it. But if you have something that's like supposed to grab things that are 1.0, it won't do it. It'll wait for a stable 1.0. So, if I did 1.0.0-RC, is that going to work with that? Right, so the caret tells it to take everything through all the minor versions. The tilde does just the hotfix version, so as soon as it bumps to 1.1, it doesn't get that. So if this interests you, I would say spend all the time on this website because it takes a while to kind of understand what the heck's going on. And it won't actually interest you at all until you actually have to use it in a package.json file. So I probably don't go to this website unless you care, right? When you're actually ready to add something to your package.json, now you go to this site and you go, okay, what do I do? Like, what do I want? What is this caret thing that they put in there? What does it actually mean? And then that's what's going to happen. And then it kind of depends on how much you trust those authors to actually follow this correctly. So if you don't trust them, that's when you might want to do something like save exact, because you're like, actually, just give me the exact version, and when I'm ready to test it, I will bump up, okay? Okay, finish up with 3 magic tricks. Let's start with scripts. All right, let me get this out of the way here. All right, so scripts give you a way in the package.json to define arbitrary commands from the command line that you can run. Okay, so anything that you can run in the command line can be put in a string inside of a script target and be run like a make file or a rake file or any of those kinds of fun things. If you don't feel like your project needs something big like grunt or gulp or whatever the hell the new one is, you could just use this for all your build tasks, right? Test, you could do something. How many people use Mocha? Cool. So you could just have like Mocha reporter equals spec, whatever else you want to do in there, star.js, whatever. And then when you run on the command line, when you run npm test, it will run Mocha. You don't have to type that every time, right? So npm test will run that. There's a couple of these magical ones like test, start. Let's say you want to start a server so that you can see what's going on, right? So I have this index.html file. And for me, like this is kind of just a development thing. Let's say I know that all of our developers have PHP on our boxes. And instead of having to set up some node server thing with another module with download, maybe I just want to say PHP has a cool server. We'll just use it. Let's see here. So I could do that. And then on the command line, I can do npm start. And it's you can see here, it ran my command that I just typed in there, which started the PHP local development server, which has the index file on it, and I can do localhost 4949, and it brings up a file. So, you may have something way more interesting to do than that. You could even, like I said, you can do anything you want here. So do something like which PHP and this, or go, oops, get more PHPs. This is going to check, does that person actually have PHP? If they don't, it won't run that, right? And so for me, this will still runs. But if we change it to something that I don't have, like PHP DDDD, don't think I have that. Have to find out. Oops, get more PHPs, right? So it's really crude right now. But you can do whatever you want with this. You can even have like a scripts folder in your repo, and you could tell it, run a node, like node./script/something, and then write a big node program in there. Or you could write a Ruby program in there, or a Python program in there, if that's what you like. A Bash program, right? A Perl program, whatever you want. And you just do you just run it, right? It's just a command line. It's like a little make file, but it's in your npm package.json. So maybe if you like make, go ahead and use that. If you really like grunt, keep using that. But this is just a neat little thing you can do extra stuff with. And things like test, start, and stop especially. There may be a few more. come for free like this. If you want to do a custom one, like let's say start is going to do like a node server, but I want to do PHP start, and this one's going to be the one that does the PHP server. Now I can do npm run because it's not one of those special ones. Okay, so anything that's custom you're doing, you defined your own target in that key. So now npm run PHP start works. npm php-start won't work because you can see why they don't want to clutter up that namespace, because what if they come up with something that conflicted with what you put in there. So run will do all of your custom script tests. So you can do whatever you want. You can have a bunch of things in here. You can have a build. You can have a lint. You can have anything you want. And the really cool part of this, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but anytime you download a package from NPM that has an executable in it, NPM will know if that package has designated that as being an executable. There's a way to do that in package.json. You can say, I have some executable like Mocha does, right? It has this thing called Mocha that can be run on the command line, and it will register that. So when you install Mocha, it will create a symlink into a folder called like .bin in the node modules folder. And so you'll have it there. And so if I don't want to expect that someone has Mocha installed globally on their machine, I can just type Mocha like this. And because it's being run as a script, NPM, when it runs it, will first look for that in node modules.bin. So if you've included Mocha as part of like one of the dependencies in your project, then you don't have to say, like you could be like .node modules.bin. That's where it really is, okay? But you don't have to. You can just give it the name of the executable, and it will know to look there. It actually puts it as part of your path. So that's kind of cool too. All right. That's the first trick. The other two are pretty fast. So remember how I said save exact works, where you can say, I don't trust other authors. I want the exact version of my library. So let's say I'm using something like Express. It has a ton of other dependencies. And every time one of my teammates comes on and installs it, I want to make sure they have exactly version 2.4. So I put 2.4 in there. No carrots, no funny business. The problem is Express may not list all of its dependencies as exact. It may have some carrots because it depends on a bunch of other things. So if Express in its checked in package JSON is depending on carrots or tildes or other things because it trusts other packages, but maybe I don't. So the problem I run into is every time someone installs fresh, it's going to do exactly 2.4 of Express for me, and then it's going to start downloading Express's dependencies, and it's going to go, oh, there's a new version of, it's going to get it, and it's going to put a different version in your dependency tree. And so some people, us included, get nervous about that because what if that breaks something, right? If you have a continuous integration server running, it's going to potentially break something that's like way deep in your dependency tree because it just updated. You know it was going to update. So the way around this is called npm shrink wrap. Okay. And so I can take, let's see if this is going to work. I do npm install save React Redux again because I think I got rid of that before. Okay, so maybe we don't have it. Npm install React. So once we have a few things in here, look at our package JSON, and it has this React dependency and this React Redux with the carrots. If I run npm shrink wrap now, it writes this new file. I can find it for you. So it's this big long file, and it has all my dependencies, and it has their exact version and where they resolved from, and then all of its dependencies and all of their versions. And basically, you should never read these files because they're really annoying. But anytime someone does npm install from your project, it's gonna if it finds a shrink wrap file, it will use that, and it will ignore the package JSON. Won't even look at it. It will use this file instead and download this exact tree of libraries into your project, so that you have the exact same versions forever. All right, so you can imagine what the problem might be there which is that you have the same exact versions of your libraries forever. And when they update, you never get them unless you're paying attention and you update them yourself. Let's see if I can do this. So this is one of our folders. There's a cool thing called npm outdated, which will show you all the outdated libraries that you're using. Let's see if it's going through all of them, trying to figure it out. So you can see here, let's see, what are the headings here? It's current, wanted, and latest. So this is what I have. That's what I say I want because I have save exact on. But then this is at 1.0, right? This is at 4.2. We have 0.7. This is the danger of using shrink wrap, because if you aren't on top of it all the time, you end up with outdated dependencies. And if there's bug fixes in there, you're not getting it. So you really have to figure out a strategy for doing this, and it's hard. Okay, so one or the other.
What about just npm install the next library, moment.js --save? How does that affect the shrink wrap that has been shrink wrapped? Is that a problem at all, or?
You'll have to re-shrink wrap every time you install something new. And npm 3, they've fixed that, so that it adds it to the shrink wrap for you. But yeah, if you have a shrink wrap right now, and the version I'm using, I have to rerun npm shrink wrap every time I install something new.
Okay. So don't shrink wrap.
No, it's good for certain things, right? All right, so the last thing I'll talk about here. I'm going to create a new file here. Oh boy, I don't know if this went in the right place. Okay, it did. I have another folder on my computer. It's called Star Wars. Right? Thanks. Yeah, I've had it for a long time. And it has just a dumb little package in it. So I can say rsw equals require Star Wars. That's not going to work because I haven't installed Star Wars in my current location. But I haven't published it yet. And so I can't install it because it's not in the registry. And I'm not ready to because it's dumb, right? So I just want to work on it myself. I need to work on it in a real project to see how it works. But I don't want to publish it yet, so what do I do, right? So most times you might say, well, I'll just copy it into my project in the node modules folder, so it's there. So that's where everyone thinks it should be. And then I'll just use it. And I have to remember, oh, I've got this package inside of my other package. And so I have to move it back out to commit it or deal with git submodules or some kind of crazy thing, right? It's really, really complicated for this kind of dance. And so NPM gives you this really sweet thing. Okay. So in here, all I have is just like a little package.json and an index file. And what I can do is say npm link. And it's going to make a symlink from this current folder to the global npm, right? So now there's this symlink ready and waiting for anytime you want to install, use Star Wars on your local machine. You can do it like, you can just say require Star Wars, and I've made a symlink up into my global npm. But I can even go back to here, and I can say npm link Star Wars, the name of the package I want to link, and now it's going to create a link into my node modules folder. So if I open this up, nope, that's a bad idea because it's really tiny. So you can see here, I've got a link to the Star Wars package that's not actually there. I haven't copied it there. It's just a symlink over to, again, this global reference. They're both pointing up to this global thing. And so I've now pushed my local package to global, and then that one is referencing the global one. And so now I can, in here, say log sw.main theme. Let's see if this works. So if I do, oh, main them, not a thing. All right, so that's the main theme. All right, so what if I do, instead of main theme, I do March, okay? All right, so that's not there. So let me go ahead and do a new tab. Oh, that's tiny. And real quick, we'll uncomment this. And without having to copy anything over or do anything, because it's referencing this file over here in the Star Wars folder, I can run this again. And right, so this is the other one that we have. So you can actually be editing your file and be kind of changing it, moving it around, adding its own dependencies on its side, and be testing it out inside of another project using this link function. And when you're ready to publish, now I can publish from Star Wars. It'll publish it to the registry, and I can install it from my package. And now it won't be using the weird link. It'll be using the real package from the installed registry. And so this is really powerful when you start having things where you want to split your own code up into modules and host them on NPM, because it gets really annoying to do that unless you have a way to kind of do this local development without having to constantly publish just because you made a change. So that's the third trick. And I think that's all I have. So we do NPM related questions first, and then I guess we'll move on to whatever else we're going to do tonight, if anything. Go ahead.
You were saying that you need to keep track of your Git tags with the versions, but I thought that NPM doesn't care about Git tags. Only it keeps the modules as tarballs in the registry.
Yeah, I think it might actually just be a convenience thing to look so that when you know you're downloading a version, you can go to Git and see the release tag. I don't know that it actually know that it necessarily uses it. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually run into some problems with that. But yeah, I think it's a convenience thing, just so you have a record of the frozen code that was published at that time.
It's definitely best practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When will you be releasing the Star Wars module?
By 2018, when episode 9 comes out. Yeah, filled with spoilers. Yeah.
You mentioned that NPM comes with Node, but is there a possibility to install NPM separately, or is there a use case for it?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't even know if it would work without it. I don't think it would. I think it's a pretty hard dependency. Save exact kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think so. Real quick, there is a way to download NPM, but I think it's assuming that your installation screwed up before and you need to install. Yeah.
Very way to publish privately.
Yes.
For example, with Star, which is fine for your own local person.
Mhm.
But if you had a team where you want to.
So there's two ways, a bunch of ways to do this actually. If you look at NPM's docs, it'll tell you all the different ways you can NPM install that don't just involve the name of a package. I showed you the easiest way, which is just the name of a package, which will look for that on the registry. You can do Git URLs that are SSH protocoled, and those can be private URLs, and if you have the key on all the machines that's using the install, it will do it that way. You can run your own registry, which is totally private, which is a huge pain in the ass, and I don't recommend doing it at all, ever. Yeah, you can do it from a local file, but also they have private modules now that you can pay for, which is pretty cheap. We do that for us. It makes it really easy. You scope them with an @ sign. So if we do @sparkpost/ in the name of our package, when we push it, we have to have a certain key in our package to be able to push and pull from that. But it's private. It can't be downloaded from it by anyone else. Bunch of ways. Anything else? Cool. Yeah. So we had something kind of fall through for the last talk tonight. So we just decided that we would just do kind of a general Q&A. So if there is anything, whether it's about the talks that you saw tonight or just about JavaScript in general, JavaScript, React, whatever. Go ahead. I'm not going to be the only one answering. I'm going to let other people answer from the crowd too. I'm just going to kind of moderate this. So I have no idea how it's going to go. What's up, Ola?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
Get it going because you're up there anyway.
Cool.
And I'll pick on Bridget if she's still here because it's she said she was going to talk at the EmberCon, which I'm going to, by the way, so look forward to seeing them. And it's a question about talk proposals. What kind of tips you have to submit as a presenter, and even what kind of tips you have as someone who's presented, because I know you did, and I mean the big talks. I know you were at the CityJS and you did a great talk there about Node and Node community. Just any tips, and before they say that, I want to say whatever they're saying, I'm asking about big talks, the national talks, doesn't apply to us here. Submit whatever you want to submit, the issues, the repo that where the instructions are on the website, charmCityJS, how to submit a talk in our repo. Very, very clear, very simple instructions. Everyone please submit a talk, first time speakers, technical, non-technical. I think, all the organizers will agree that it's really great hearing from everybody for our forum. I'd like to hear about, the people, Bridget, what tips you have for the bigger talks, which I think is different than what we're doing here. So either of you can start.
Okay.
So I'll mention something.
Yeah, Eric's
Yeah,
going.
by all means.
I'm doing just a lightning talk, but it's at ReactConf in San Francisco next month. So for me, it was kind of, I wanted to go to ReactConf, and it's pretty hard to get a ticket if you're not speaking. And so, they had this opportunity where you just give a 5-minute lightning talk and get a ticket. So for me, it was kind of about, I wanted my talk to be outside the box. And so my thought, I'm doing a talk specifically about React Native, but my thinking was that everyone's going to talk about, how awesome React and React Native is. And mine's more like a retrospective. So it's kind of like constructive criticism. So that was just kind of the way I thought I could get in the door, because I don't think many people are going there to talk about like what can be done better and like what isn't good so far. So that's kind of, for bigger things, I think that'd be like my tip, is kind of try to think outside the box. That's kind of how I did it.
Awesome. You want to say something?
So the only other talk I've given at any events has been at Ignite, and I illustrated a lot of it. So I wanted to see what it would be like if I tried to illustrate Ember and what it's like building an Ember app. So that's the talk I'm giving.
Definitely outside the box, I would say. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like what you were saying. So the distinction I think that Ella was talking about is meetups versus conferences. Conference talks tend to be longer, slightly bigger crowds, a little bit harder to get accepted because there's just more people trying to get into that talk from a larger geographical area. But I would say, what I would say is going to be applicable to both. It's just that, don't do what I just did tonight, and just talk about a thing, right? I think this is interesting. There's room for these, but especially if you're trying to do if you haven't spoken before, don't worry about trying to stand up and give documentation. Just tell a story about something that you did that was interesting to you. You might not think it's interesting to anybody else, but I guarantee you it will be. It'll be way more interesting than you reading the documentation of something to us from a website. We had a couple, we had really great talks across the board here, but a couple standouts where, if you guys were here when Katrina Schmalzer came and talked about her color typewriter. She was in a class and she just learned JavaScript for the first time and created when you typed keys, it created different color grids. And she spent 7 or 8 minutes telling about how she came up with the idea and how it was interesting. And it was just awesome to hear just a little story about something that a couple of weeks ago someone came and talked about their Ludum Dare, I don't know how to say, game. And, it's just stuff like that I think is really great. So I would say is just think about something that was interesting for you or fun. And I guarantee you other people will think it's interesting.
I might add one more myself. I got to talk at JSConf U. I think it helps to have some background, some profile on the web. I think, Twitter, GitHub, I think they want to know who you are. I'm not an official at any of these things, but I think it does help to have some kind of a personality. I think in general, their first rounds are supposed to be blind, and I think they are. They just go by out of the box thinking. So I think the first round, they'll go by the title and what you literally say in the talk proposal. But beyond that, they probably want to make sure they have a person there. And so maybe something to think about. Other questions, anybody else?
I just wanted to chip in on that a little bit. When it comes to writing your talk title and abstract for the talk proposal, Sarah May posted a giant tweet storm over the past couple of weeks about tips for that stuff, and I'll post it to the meetup. Some links to those tweets.
Yeah, what's up?
My name is Hassan. First time for the charmCity.
Awesome, welcome.
Yeah, I got a chance to listen to the last one online, and it's awesome.
Awesome.
That's what.
I didn't do it. I'm just recording. We don't keep recording.
I'm just recording, like the very thing.
Well, people have to come here and talk.
I'm relatively new to the JavaScript development ecosystem. As 7-8 months, I'm doing Angular JS 1x. I'm hearing a lot of React these days. I don't know how to react with that.
You are welcome here. With me, anyway.
So, kind of overwhelmed. I see a lot of people here are probably experts, could guide me, stay put in Angular or jump shift.
Somebody who isn't me, talk about this. Yeah. Yeah, please.
So I've worked with I work with Angular at my job, and I looked a little bit into Angular too, and I've worked with React on a lot of side projects. And my impression with a lot of these sort of MVC or MVVM star, whatever, all these kinds of frameworks, is that a lot of them are kind of getting to a point where they do have pros and cons over each other. But what it really ends up coming down to is what your team is comfortable with. And there's no such thing really as an app that you could build in Angular that you couldn't build in React or vice versa. So I would advise, try using it on a side project or something like that. But, there are pros and cons to both. React doesn't have the dependency injection that Angular has, but it's got other things, and they have very different ways of doing templates. Some people like React's way better. Some people like Angular's way better. Angular 2 has learned a lot of lessons from React, so they're actually kind of moving together into they're going to be in very similar places soon. So I would say that, there's no need to sort of be like worried that like it's going to overtake Angular and destroy it or anything like that. But, it's good to like sort of know about as many of these things as you can. So, yeah.
And React's very small. You could learn it like in a couple days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only a library. It's not actually a framework.
Okay, great. Got a connected question, a follow-up question. It's good to know that, thank you. The other thing is, see, when I am working for an organization or a government agency, when I decide on a framework or a library, it's investment of time, not only of mine, it's also about the other entity. So once I set up the environment and a lot of dependencies grow, it's tough for one to adapt another technology, there's going to be dependency for years to go.
Yeah.
So how would one tackle this issue? Also, when staying put in your career perspective.
So I would, like I said before, if React was the kind of thing where it was going to completely obliterate Angular the way that Angular sort of did to other things that we don't hear about anymore, like XJS, then that might be more of a concern. I would say you're absolutely right, though. This question came up in my job over the summer when we were starting a whole new project, and the thought was maybe we should do this one in React this time. And what it came down to was that we had a lot of people who had spent a lot of time learning Angular, and that's a very real concern that we would have to retrain all of them. It's also worth looking at if we were in a place where Angular was sort of going off the rails and was going out of style, it is worth looking at the fact that if it was easier to hire developers with React, that's also something to think about. And you just sort of have to weigh these things in terms of, there's no one set answer, but, you just sort of have to keep your finger on the pulse, try doing some side projects in it so that you can be aware of what the differences are and you can bring them up in meetings and things like that. And if it does address certain pain points that you're having, like if you're having performance problems that you think that React can solve, then you may actually have a case and you can bring that up in technical meetings and stuff like that.
Thank you.
If you want to touch the older up guys, they actually put React in their Angular Rails apps. So they have some experience there.
So order up. What's that? Local.
I would also say don't go crazy, like attempt to stay up to date with JavaScript frameworks. It's a reality that things will change. What we're talking about right now will not be relevant in a year, 18 months. Like you said, do what you're comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript. So, and yeah, it's just like, don't try to stay. Don't go crazy. I see people who I work with that drive themselves insane with that. So just chill out.
The worst thing you can do is get overwhelmed and learn nothing.
Yeah.
So pick something and learn it.
Just do it.
Yeah, you should
Spend the time
you
learning.
should stick to like a couple things, like pick like your front end framework, and if you do back end too, you pick your back end. Like kind of stick with those things and concentrate until you get to a point. Because if you're spread out, you can't keep all that information. You'll be like, I thought I could do this and this, and you're thinking, you know, how you might display something in React, and you're trying to do it in Angular now because you're confusing the two. So it doesn't help to, especially early on, mix a lot of different frameworks or libraries together. Maybe just like learn one or two.
Let's do like maybe 2 more questions. Announcement. Okay.
It's kind of just a hiring thing. So I work for Fixed, formerly known as Peach, with these two guys here. Essentially what we're doing is on-demand device repair and replacement, and we're hiring. So kind of any level, junior, senior, whatever. We just want people who can learn. We're doing JavaScript, React Native, React, Node, some Rails, a lot of different things. Small company, a lot of room for growth, and kind of come in and make your impact. So if you're interested, get in touch with me or these guys. Come with me at the bar. So.
Cool.
Just want to poll the room. How many people are transpiling to TypeScript or ES6? Yes.
So this would be like Babel, or if you're using if you're using Babel or Tracer. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, how are you finding debugging working out? Has anybody actually had a good experience with debugging transpiled code? What are you using?
Visual Studio Code, and I've used it. We're using Protractor for our automated testing, which runs on top of Node, which means that Visual Studio Code can actually debug it with breakpoints and stuff. And it's got really good source map support, so I would recommend that if you're doing
That's
that.
interesting. Also, I found that Visual Studio Code is the only thing that can decently debug an Electron app too. It happens to be an Electron app, but
yeah.
So that's kind of surprising. But yeah, I've actually gone through that experience with using ES6 and source maps, and it works reasonably well if you use WebStorm and you do the source maps correctly. But if you're using ES6 modules, you're screwed. Don't even try.
So I have an opinion on this, which I formed mostly through Closure scripts, which is like Closure, which is a list which compiles to JavaScript, and I stopped using their source maps after I saw it blow up on a line, and then saw a print statement above that line, which did not get executed. So the source map was off and therefore useless. My opinion on compile.js languages, which at this point includes ES6 if you're client side, is that they either need to be close enough to the JavaScript that you can debug them when it blows up, so like CoffeeScript, or they need to be far away enough in the JavaScript that they never have a runtime exception, which is, I mentioned Elm, that's what they're going for. I'm not gonna harp on it because it's still being actively developed, but it will hopefully be the next big thing that we use. That's my thoughts. You can take them or leave them.
A thought on that one too, though, is in ES6, you can generally run it in Chrome, right? If it's ES6, that's your problem, right? So I think you can get away with debugging that way if you just in your development environment.
I think there's some features. I don't think all of ES6 is.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not recommending.
certain
It's
features,
more,
yeah.
I'm also doing a survey as to if anyone kind of gets away with it that way, just using ES6.
I run everything through Babel.
Okay. Because my build system automatically does the build, and I have the same problem, but I just wonder if anyone would just make.
Yeah, it won't help you trace it back. It won't help you trace it back to your original code.
Transpiled code, and it's ES5 at that point. I get so confused, I just give up.
We use source maps, Webpack, and Babel, and Chrome debugger, and it always puts me in the right file, the right line.
Nice.
I've never had an issue.
Yeah, I use the Node Inspector as well for debugging, but what I've found is I just have to attach it after it's spun up as opposed to trying to start it by debugging, so that the transpiling is already like
Mhm.
pass through all the node modules.
Yeah, I want the source map work fine, but that's why I didn't really comment on it. I use Webpack and Babel as well.
We
My
can,
experience with source maps was on the node side of things, the back end. So that's where I was running into a lot of issues.
yeah, we had a problem with Babel source maps where they couldn't run because they were attaching to like the require hook or something, and we already had our code coverage tool was doing that, and so it just blew up. So we had to pick one or the other, and we picked code coverage for the
Yeah,
moment.
it probably depends on the-
This is a lot of weird. I think we're just in like that weird transition state in some places. Istanbul, yeah.
WebAssembly to fix all their problems.
Well, you mentioned the transition state, so I'll lead with the next question. Just basically, how would you design ES 2016 if you were in charge? Because if we're all transpiling or just compiling, then it would make sense to treat JavaScript as assembly language and to make it as simple and standard as possible. So we're not dealing with all of these browser quirks and say, well, we don't need string interpolation because the compiler can focus on rewriting with the pluses and the quotes and that. So that's one dimension of, would you make it more complicated and try to make it person programmable, or would you try to compile it as make it as simple and reliable as possible? But I'll open the floor. Where do you think the future of JavaScript should be, and what are even the dimensions on which you could quantify these opinions? I've only given one.
I mean, I think that you run into some issues when you move towards compiling. Like just looking at JavaScript, you can't do weak maps. You just get a B in the future, you know, but you can't have a backwards compatible way of implementing that. So I think that if you move to compilation, you do give up some of the dynamicism of the language.
And I think one of the big directions for ES 2016 and 2017, now whatever the next what ES7 would have been, is basically getting rid of the pattern of like everything has to be asynchronous with all that. I mean, it still is asynchronous, but it's going to be like with a wait instead. It's going to look much more procedural. But I think like all these patterns that we've learned over the last few years of promises and callbacks and all that are like people learning programming 4 or 5 years from now aren't even know what those are, because they're just going to be waiting and doing their programming just kind of procedurally, even though it's actually doing asynchronous calls. If you're familiar with C#, they're basically taking that concept from C#. It's very interesting to look into. It's a huge breaking change, whereas like ES6, in my opinion, wasn't that big of a difference as far as the fundamental things you can do with the language.
Cool.
I'm just really waiting for the exponent operator.
The what?
The next big thing.
The exponent operator?
Yeah. Was it 2 stars? Yeah. I think it's almost approved. Are we ever going to get safe navigation in JavaScript? Question mark dot. They just added that to Ruby. It's been in Ruby forever.
Oh.
That's being C#. That's the greatest thing ever. No pointers. So.
You can write to a proposal. It's got an open proposal process.
All right, let's take this rousing conversation to the bar. Now we're gonna go to Huck's. Where we've been going. It's like a block up that way and then a block that way. If you don't know, follow a crowd. Pick a crowd. Hope it's the right one. Thanks for.